Hello, this is Artful with Michelle. Today we're going to be drawing my Easter Bunny. We're using a 9x12 stretched and primed canvas. I'm going to show you how to draw the bunny. Mine is already applied to the canvas, but I'll be showing you with tracing paper how to draw it, or you could also use a traceable. For our brushes, today we're going to be using about a 3/4 inch flat for the background, a 1/2 inch flat, a number 6 round, and a scruffy fluffy brush. This is like bristles, and it's actually a kid's art brush, and it works great for a furry look. You can use a Deerfoot Stippler or any other worn brush. I always recommend hanging on to your worn brushes and not getting rid of them because they come in handy for different techniques. You'll also need a pencil. Our colors today, we have many colors, and if I add any during the video, I'll add it in the description also. So these are liquid student grade acrylics, and I am using white, chrome orange, phthalo red, phthalo green, phthalo blue, burnt umber, chrome yellow, green oxide, Joxazine purple, ultramarine blue, and of course burnt umber and Mars black. All right. So to draw your bunny, right around top of center is about where the head starts. So we have a head that's about 3.5 inches or so, and then we have really big ears on this little guy. So we're going to start just below midway. We're going to draw a circle. Now you can just keep going and then erase it later. I'm just going to stop, but you can bring it all the way down and then come in and erase later. We're going to draw the 2 big ears. So this bunny has a smaller head and big, ginormous ears, which I think makes it super cute. And we're going to draw the rest of that ear. I like to make the noses like an upside down triangle with like rounded edges at the top. And I'm just going to do a little line for the mouth. Now you can wait and add that after you paint this white, or you can do it now so you'll know where the placement is. Right below the center line of the nose, I'm going to draw a circle for the center of the bow. And then I'm drawing a long, narrow bow, but you can certainly change up anything that you'd like. And then I made an assortment of Easter eggs, and then we're going to paint a lot of grass. So I just made my egg shapes in different sizes and imagined how they would look if they were just laying in the grass. And again, you might want to paint the whole egg. Like for this egg, you might want to go ahead and run it through this one and then just erase your line later. Lots of eggs to paint today. And then I threw in one more little one right over here. Okay. Mine is already applied to my canvas, so I'm going to take the tracing away and have the canvas ready, and we will start painting. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is paint the background. And I actually have a second plate for mixing because my plate is so full of paint, I won't have room for mixing. So I'll try to show you on this one as we go. So I'm going to use the large 3/4 inch flat for my background. You could also use the 1/2 inch if you're more comfortable with that size. And I'm just going to create the sky, and I'm going to have it come about halfway down the canvas. So I'm grabbing some ultramarine blue and some white, and I'm just mostly going to brush mix on my canvas. So here we go. I'm going to start at the top, and I am just painting this in. I'll go around the ears. You could actually make this a little bit jagged if you want, because we're going to make the bunny ears fluffy. Okay, so how I do my backgrounds usually is the motion of like the letter X, like this, and I overlap it over and over itself, okay? And I keep adding white when I'm going to add more paint, and as I'm coming down, I want this to be a little bit lighter because our grass is going to come up and meet it. So that's enough for there. And I use a very, very light touch to kind of fluff the paint. I call it fluffing. Okay, so we're going to try to get down into all the little areas that we want nice and pretty. So what I'm going to do is tip this a little bit in the hopes that it will give you a better angle. And it's okay to just leave it a little bit kind of fluffy there. I'm actually thinking I might base coat this bunny in a very pale gray instead of straight white this time. Okay, let's see. Get a little bit more of the paint. I'm going to turn it upside down. Kind of make it a little bit crooked. And then I just keep grabbing mostly little bits of white because I want it to be a little bit pastel up here. And I love it being just a little bit darker behind the ears. If it comes out like that, that's great. And then we're just going to fluff that white and let it fade out there. Get a little bit more. I want a little bit more of the blue behind my bunny. So I'm just going to put in a little bit more of the straight blue. And I'm purposely not being really tidy here because if you make a really strong rigid line, sometimes it's hard to cover that when you come back in and you're fluffing in your fluffy colors. Okay. I'm going to smooth that out. I kind of like that. Okay, and then let's do a little bit over here also. While this is nice and wet, we'll grab just a little bit of the blue. And I'm just putting it like on the corner of the brush and just kind of getting it in there. And blend it. The light blue is still wet, so this is all very blendable. And grabbing just a little bit, we'll do this side. I can't come at it from that side, I have to turn it upside down. Alright. Try to bring your colors right to your edge and maybe overlap them a little. And you can either paint those edges with the color that's on the front, or you could use black. Black is really cool on the side edges also. Alright. So I'm going to put that brush in the water for now, and I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch flat, wet it in my water, touch it on my paper towel, and I'm going to make a very light green here. I'm going to make it darker as we come down. So I'm going to grab a little bit of green oxide and some chrome yellow and a little white. And right here below the sky, I'm going to start applying that color. You don't need a lot of paint for this part. I'm going to come in here too with a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of fluff it. That's the word I use when I'm using a light touch and letting things blend. I'm just going to kind of let that blend softly into the sky. And then add a little bit of white if you need to cover up any of the blue there in the background. We want it to be like a subtle little field of flowers behind our bunny when we're done. Okay, a little tiny bit more white for right here. Okay, so now to do the other side, of course, I'm going to turn it. I'm going to grab some more of that same color and go around this little egg and about the same distance as the other side, the same height from the bottom. I'm just going to bring that color around. And right in here, I'm going to kind of fluff it into our sky, grab a little bit of white, and just let that kind of fade out into our blue very, very softly. And try to make it about the same on each side. Okay, and then as we come down, we're going to make the ground darker. And that will come in handy later when we're putting in our grass and we want to have a lot of dimensions. So we're going to take our green, add a little bit of burnt umber, and make this really nice, like a forest, a mossy green. It's almost like a deep olive. And we're going to go ahead and put that at the bottom. And we're going to let it just kind of fade into the other green here. Go around our eggs. Now there will be grasses covering some of these eggs. So if you opt to not get the edges perfect, that's going to be okay. Alright, let me turn this around. If it gets, if your eggs get a little misshapen, you can fix them after when you actually paint the eggs. Alright, get this green in here. And right here above this egg. And then just kind of fluff it, kind of dry brush it up into the other green. Okay, so we have kind of a soft transition, and if you flick your brush in a vertical motion, it will create a little bit of a grassy look for us later. Okay, very cool. I'm going to grab just a little bit more of the brown and the green. Going to make it a little bit, even just a little darker here at the bottom, and I'm going to let it be a little bit messy. Remember, there's grasses going in there later, so just a little bit darker. Okay. Make it a little bit darker under the eggs. Okay. Alright, I'm going to rinse that brush. Now we're going to base coat our bunny in some gray today, very light gray. So I'm going to take some white and a little bit of black. I'm going to brush mix some gray. And this little area right here is the belly. comes down the side of the other egg, so we want to make sure that we're kind of curving this a little bit down here to create that side wall of that egg. But we can make adjustments when we paint the eggs. And we don't have to have this perfectly solid because we're going to come in and do a lot of pouncing and making a really neat fur look. So I'm going to base coat my bunny, and I'm going to leave the edges just a little bit sort of rounded and messy instead of perfectly smooth. And I'm going to go around the nose just because I already have it on there. You can also add it later. So it's whatever you like. Going around the bow. I'm okay with variations in the color. I actually prefer that. Okay, now we'll do the ears. And on the inside, I'm just going to leave some white. We're going to go ahead and put some pink in there, so I'm just going to kind of fluff the brush and leave, not like a solid line, but just leave some rough line there for where we're going to go in and add our pink. We'll fix all that later. All right. It's okay to have a little bit fluffing out like this. Okay. Put that brush in the water. Looked like there was a hair there, but it was just paint. Okay, let's make some Easter egg color decisions. So I'm going to use the colors I have on my palette, and if I add any, I'll let you know, but let's see. Why don't we go with the big one here? I'm going to use Phthalo Red for. I'm going to use my number 6 round brush to get these base coated, just because there's a lot of little tight areas here that we're going to have to get into. If you use a round brush, just make sure that you smooth out your paint. Okay. Sometimes flat brushes are a little bit easier for getting smooth lines, but in this case, there's so many little points to get around. I think the round might serve you better. And I'm going to come down here. So I'm going to flip it around so I can get into these points here. And I do want the egg to be darker where it falls under the bow and behind the other egg. So I'm going to grab a little bit of white and I'm just going to start gently sort of laying the brush down. So it's like patting, but I'm laying the brush down so that I'm not ruining the bristles. I'm not pouncing or anything. I'm just very gently laying the brush down, kind of blending it in that motion. And I do want the egg to be a little bit darker around the edges. And we'll come in and we will add more highlight later as this dries and sets up. Okay, so that's our first one. Phthalo red, which is a really nice pink. And let's see. I really love teal. So let's maybe do 2 teal. One here, one here. And so what I'm going to do to make my teal is I'm going to mix phthalo green and phthalo blue. I'm going to add some white. Make it a color that you're really happy with. Go ahead and get the eggs of your choice base coated in this beautiful color. So I'm going to do 2 in this color. So while I have this in the one direction, that's good for getting in from one side, I'll do both. Now I'm going to make the brush strokes go in the shape that I would imagine the egg, how it curves. That's how I'm going to brush the color in. Alright, let's turn it upside down and get the other parts, the other areas done. Okay, so we're going to go around the bow here, leaving it nice and dark. The bunny's going to be fluffy there. So I'm using more of the color without white, and I'm doing the egg where it touches the other egg. Coming out. Right. And then let's get this one here. I have lots of grass down there, so you don't really have to be perfect. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a little bit of white and I'm going to start just laying my brush down and patting this upper area. It's going to fade into the background color quite a bit, and we'll keep coming in and adding more as the design develops. Okay, so before I get too involved in here, I'm going to do some of the pouncing on the bunny rabbit. Now I'm envisioning the eggs are in front of the bunny, so I don't think I want a lot of fur to come and touch the eggs, so I'm going to try to avoid that. So I'm going to take a little bit of white on the tip of this brush. So I'm just going to dip. I leave the brush dry, and then I'm going to tap on my plate like this. So my brush looks something like this. You need the paint to be on the tip. Whoops, I got some. Let me wipe that off. I have to transfer to the other plate for pouncing. I have more room here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this area of the bunny's chest tapped in. So I'm leaving the edges that are closest to the egg darker. And I like to turn the brush in different directions. Okay. Now I'm grabbing some white and I'm going to work on the face a little bit and then we'll come back down. So the face is dry and the ears are dry. So we're just going to tap. So the motion is just tapping gently across the face, and you want to use a very light pressure because you want to let some of that gray show through. So when you're pouncing, if you pounce very lightly, your background will show through. If you pounce hard, you're going to make a very dense and solid fur look, and your bunny won't look as fluffy. So you're better off to come in and do light layers over and over, but you really want to let some of that gray show through your white pouncing. Okay, that's what's going to give you a little bit of dimension on your bunny furry look. So I'm okay if it gets on the bow because we're going to paint that later. I'm going to leave some gray showing around the nose. And I'm letting the white fluff out onto the background. Okay, so we're going to leave that and we're going to come back to the face in a moment. So we're going to work on the ears. More white paint. If you have more than one of these fluffy brushes, that's great. So once you start adding the pink for the ears, you really have to wipe it out before you go back to more white, or you'll have a pink tinge. Okay, we're going to do the other ear. Getting more white paint, tapping it on my plate. Using a very, very, very light touch, hardly applying any pressure to the canvas, but quite a bit of paint on the brush, so I can transfer the paint without a lot of pressure. Oops, I hit it a little hard right there by mistake. All right. So we're going to let that set up for just a moment. I'm going to do something I don't ever recommend doing, and I'm just going to put this brush down wet for a couple of minutes because I'll be right back to it. On the eggs, we're going to decide on some more colors. So I'm going to make the bow yellow. So if I do a yellow, I think I'll do this one over here in chrome yellow. So I'm just going to grab straight chrome yellow. Add some brightness down here in the grass. A lot of paint on my brush. So I'm bouncing you around to different areas so that one area can dry while you work another area. Okay, I'm going to use a little bit of chrome orange at the bottom of this egg. Bring it around. I'm going to wipe my brush. And with my point toward the orange, I'm just going to blend it out a little bit. Try to get in any little white areas so you don't have a glaring white spot down there. And I don't really want symmetry, so let's see. How about some purple for the middle one? So let's use dioxazine purple and some white. And let's make a luscious purple color. Yeah, that's pretty luscious. Make it go in the shape of the egg. I have to flip this over a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to take just the purple without the white for the bottom part here. I'm going to make the bottom just a little bit darker. Again, there's going to be lots of grasses, so let's just pat that in. And leave that. Turn it around. Okay. Let's see, how about a peachy orangey color for this egg? So we're going to take some chrome orange and some white, and we're going to make a peach. Nice Easter color. You could add a little bit of the phthalo red to that also. Alright, and I'm going to paint this one. Yeah, that's pretty. I like that a lot. I'm going to make it darker at the bottom and lighter up at the top. And here where it touches this, where it falls behind the purple egg, I'll go ahead and let that be just a little bit darker also. Okay. Alright, so that's looking good. So let's grab that brush while it's still nice and wet. And I need to pour out a little bit more white for myself. Okay, let's get this bunny looking really fluffy. Alright, a little bit more white. Tap it. You don't want to go in with too much right away. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go over what we already did and make it brighter. I still want to let some of the gray show because that's what gives us our depth and our dimension. You can see that getting brighter. Very, very light touch. I'm going to leave it darker underneath the nose, all around the nose. Grab a little bit more paint. And I want to let that white fluff out on the edges, out onto the background. If you get too much white, you can always go back in, add some gray, and start that area over again. Okay, so you see the difference between the face and the ears now. Now we could actually leave the ears a little bit darker where they touch the head because they're set back a little. So I'm not going to make that super light there, but I'm going to start up at the top of the ear and kind of make it a little bright around the edges. Super cute. All right, let's do the other ear. Okay. I got a little white there at the base of the ears. I wanted to leave that a little bit darker, but what I'm going to do is brighten the top of the head a little bit to bring it forward from the ears. Okay, so now while that's wet, we're going to do the cheeks and the inside part of the ears. So I usually make a mix of my chrome orange and my phthalo red, and then I just grab white, lots of white actually. And I get a peachy color that I'm happy with. I do like a little bit of pink in with the peach. Okay, so again, you want to fluff this brush out. The wetter it gets, the harder it is to make it perform. So if you have more than one, you can, you know, use them. Use the other one. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to fluff this peachy color. I'm going to add some white to it also. So I got my peachy base. I'm going to do this one. Okay, now I'm going to grab white. I want to add some white over that peachy color. You can play with these colors and decide how you like it. I just want it to be a little bit subtle. Okay, I'm going to do the same on the cheeks. I'm going to grab just a little bit of color, and the cheeks are going to go on each side of the nose. You can grab a little bit of white also and pounce a little bit of white on it if it gets brighter than you want. Just soften it. Alright, so that's looking pretty cute. You can always come back and keep fluffing more white as the project dries. I'm going to take most of this off here. Alright, take a look at that and see what you think. I'm going to add just a little more white up here. Again, let it fluff out onto your background. I think if you keep a super defined line, you're not going to have really fluffy looking bunny. So, okay, I'm going back to my round brush. Now I'm envisioning that these eggs are in the front of the bunny, so I'm not going to have bunny fur sticking out over it. You could. All right. We need a color for the bow tie. So we have most of our Easter colors here. We have teal, purple, peach, pink. Let's bring the yellow up into the bow. So I'm mostly going to use the chrome yellow. That's a lot of paint. Come back to that side when I flip it over. Now you can see my pencil line there, so I'll be coming in with some white and I'll be getting that pencil line covered up. Okay, so while that's wet, I'm going to put orange on the outside of the knot, and I'm just going to pull it out onto my bow and just keep wiping my brush so I don't pull too much out, and just let it fade out to the yellow. I have to turn it on its side to reach the other side, so I'm going to grab some white and mix it with my yellow, and the outer part of this side of the bow is going to be lighter here where it comes over the egg. Okay. Excuse me. So now this is turned sideways. I'm going to get the orange on the other side of the knot and pull it out. Okay. Paint the knot, and I'm going to add a little bit of my white to my chrome yellow. I'm going to make the knot portion of the bow even lighter. I want to pop it forward. Okay, let me grab some white, pat the top of the knot. And I'm going to add the white to the left side here. Whoops, I slipped. Just lightly tapping it in. Okay, so this side needs a little more white. Alright, super cute. Alright, while the face is drying, we'll go ahead. We can still work the nose. So I'm going to use the same colors that I pounced in the cheeks, which is the pink and the orange. And I'm going to paint the nose. The top's going to be nice and peachy pink. And as I come down, I'm just going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to add a lot of white to it. And of course, I'm going to turn and lift this up so you can see this nice and close. Now I'm going to turn it upside down. And I'm going to get this little triangular portion done. I'm going to make that a little bit darker too. So I'm going to take some pink and orange. And down here at the point, I'm going to make it a little bit darker there. Then I'm going to wipe my brush and just kind of blend it. There we go. A little bit more right here, a little bit more blending. Okay, so I'm going to grab, I wiped my brush off on my paper towel, and I'm going to grab some white. And I'm just going to start laying in a little bit of white highlight. It will dry and we'll come in and strengthen it if we think about it. Alright, super cute. Alright, so let's get a little bit more highlight on our eggs. I'm going to get some white. I'm going to pat it on to our egg. And then just kind of let it fade. You can take a little bit of your egg color to help kind of pat that in. Let's do a little bit more on this egg on this side. I'm going to put some in quickly, and then I'm just going to start patting the white. Okay, let's get some of our peachy color. Grab a little bit of white. Grab a little bit of teal. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some of the color of the egg and some white, and I'm just kind of patting in a mixture to add in a highlight. The eggs are dry, so we can't get in and do a lot of blending without adding a little bit more color on our brush. For the pink one, I'm just going to take a little bit of pink and white and make a really light pink, and I'm going to put a little highlight up here at the top and kind of let it fade down. Okay, now let's see. Let's get a little bit of brightness on the yellow egg. I'm going to take some yellow and some white and make a pale yellow. And I'm going, oh, I had some green in my brush. Okay, so yellow and white. Make a really pale yellow and get some of that patted in over here. I don't really want to put it in the shadow. Okay, so our purple one needs just a little bit. So we're going to grab some purple and white. And we need more white. Just going to highlight a little bit there. Highlight it where it touches the orange egg. And then as it comes down, we can come back in with some more of the dioxazine purple and just kind of pat it in. All right. Okay, we're almost there. So I want to put some little texture out in my sky, so I'm tearing off a piece of my paper towel and I'm going to wrap my finger in it. I'm going to wet it in some clean water and squeeze it out. And I'm going to take just a little tiny bit of white, push it in on my plate, tap it on my paper towel, and what I'm going to do is come in and add some texture to the sky. That's going to make it maybe look like there's clouds out there, but it just adds some texture, whether you think about it as clouds or... and what I do when I do this is I put the paint on the tip and I let the pad of my finger stay clear and I lay it down on the canvas, and that serves sort of as a blending tool. Put some over here. So you want to be kind of uneven with that. Like use an up and down patting motion to get that in your background. It's going to fade a lot. You might even want to come in and strengthen it a little bit. Totally up to you. Alright, so I like that a lot. I think it adds texture and interest up into our backgrounds. I'm going to put a little bit also where the green kind of fades into the sky. I'm going to add just a little bit. It's not much at all. Less is more, as they say, and you can always go in and add there. I'll let that go up into the sky. Okay. His face is drying. We're going to be adding in some eyes, but I want the face to be dry before we do that. So I want to create some depth and dimension by making it look like there's a little field of flowers in behind our bunny. So I'm going to take that number 6 round, roll it on my paper towel. It comes to a beautiful point. And I'm going to take little tiny bits of green oxide, and I'm just going to come in and make little tiny lines. Little straight lines here and there. And I want it to look like there's little tiny flowers way out in the distance. Okay. Maybe another one over here. All right. Don't make them super strong. We don't want them really in focus. I'm going to take a little tiny bit of white and touch it on my plate because I don't want a lot. I'm just going to put some little tiny dots in. And you can put some even where there's no stems, because if they're deep in the grass we wouldn't see the stems. Plus this is way out in the distance. Just have some fun with that. It's going to look like there's a little field of flowers out there. Okay, super cute. All right, so let's go ahead and work on some grasses. I'm going to just kind of pat my purple egg a little because it's still pretty wet. And I want to be able to make my grass. You can blow dry your design. All right, so for the grasses, I want some dark grass, and then as we come forward, we're going to add brighter grass. So I'm going to take some of my green oxide and some burnt umber, and I'm going to make that dark mossy green that I love so much. And I'm going to tilt this up and try to give you a great angle. So I'm going to pull the brush from the bottom up, and it's not really like a flicking, but it's almost like a flicking in that when you finish your brush stroke, your brush is leaving the canvas, and so you get like a wispy end. So I'm going to come in like this, make some tall, some short. You're not going to maybe see these so much in front of the darker eggs, but as we go in and put in our highlights, you will. So your blades of grass, I'm dipping in some brown too, like more brown than green sometimes, and varying it. You want to let your brush curve in different directions. Let your grasses crisscross. Put some more brown down in the dirt area. I like having some of that brown down there. Of course, if you want to make it much brighter, you can, but that's where the highlights come in for me. So I'm coming in with some green oxide. I'm leaving my brush dirty, grabbing some green oxide and putting a few of those in there. Okay, we're going to completely go across. And notice some of the grasses are taller, some are shorter, some are wider. You can use a more narrow brush too if you have trouble getting a nice point. It's just that the brushes that hold more paint will get you further in the brush stroke than one that's more fine. Let's Get some nice dark brown in there. You could even add a little, let me show you what it's like to add just a little black with the brown. So that's pretty cool. We'll take just a little bit of black. So I'm mixing a little black with my green and brown mix and getting some nice dark grasses in there. And then you'll see when we come in with our wonderful lime green, my favorite lime green. The birds outside are having a lot of fun singing and making noise while I'm painting this fun spring design. Okay. I want to have a little bit in through here also, just a tiny bit. Nothing super thick or dense, but let's get a few of those green and brown grasses in here also. Just a little bit. Make some smaller ones. Okay. Okay. That's good. All right, let's rinse this brush a little bit and start with our highlight. So for me, I use a lot of the lime green, which I make by mixing my chrome yellow and my green oxide. So I take green oxide, lots of chrome yellow, and I usually take a nice blob of white. Make that really nice and bright. And you can use variations of this in your brush also. And so what I want to do is create some lighter strokes, but I want to leave a lot of that dark grass in there also, because that's what's going to give us that dimension. So let's just go ahead and start putting in some lighter. I'm going to grab more white. You can also, if you prefer, you can also let this area dry. I like some of it blending, so I'm okay with doing it now while it's still a little wet. But if yours is super wet and you want to dry it before you finish, that's great too. Alright, so right in here I want to have some brightness that comes up and over. Okay, so on these, let's just go right across and then we'll come in and we'll add some highlight to some individual blades of grass. Oops, I didn't mean for those to touch. I'm going to clean that off right there. A little moist paper towel will usually clean that right up for you. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. Grab a little bit more white. So I'm letting the brush pick up little bits of the different colors that are there. You could even take a little of your phthalo green and get some of that in there. So I just like to play with the different colors that are in on my palette, that are in the composition. And you know, there's nothing wrong with adding a little bit of pink to your grass and things like that. This is an Easter design. It's very whimsical, so have some fun with it. I'm using some of the lighter color in there, leaving it darker behind the egg. And before I get up into this area, I want to put some of that dark mossy green behind this egg too. So I'm going to grab some of that dark mossy green and get it up behind this teal egg. Kind of an afterthought, but wherever there's a really deep area like that, like a really recessed area, if you come in and you add some darker color in there, I think you'll be happy with that. It just sets it further down in the grass. Okay. Yeah, I like that a lot. And then we'll get our little blades of grass on top of that in a moment. So let's keep going across. I'm going to get some yellow in there, some yellow and green. Adding a little bit of white will make it pop even more. And I'm going to come in with some straight white too pretty soon. So I just keep playing with the different colors in the palette. I'm going to show you again. Lots of yellow, white. Add a little bit of water to your paint too whenever you need to help it flow off your brush. The more you practice that, the better you'll get at it. And get some little grasses in here, just a few little flicked grasses, and I'm going to let some come over onto this egg. This egg's behind the orange one. And then I'm just going to put some little grasses up in here. Remember, you have grasses that crisscross. Throw in some of those random, unexpected grasses going in another direction. It will look much more natural that way. Okay, let's take a look. All right, that's coming together very nicely. I'm going to let that grass dry a little bit. I'm going back to the knot on the bow. I'm going to take some white and I'm just going to pat it up here at the top. Just kind of let it soften onto the yellow. And I'm going to add some more over here too. White tends to kind of fade into your background as it dries. Super cute little bunny. I'm going to grab some more of my light pink and highlight this egg a little bit right here where if it was poking out, the sun might hit it right there. Grab a little bit of phthalo. All right. Go back in for a little more highlight on this egg. Okay. Let's give our little bunny some eyes. So I want to make two eyes that are kind of close to the nose in the middle, and I'm just going to make them round today. So you could use a pencil or you can use the back end of the handle of a brush. Whatever your preferred method is. I kind of like the tip of a pencil because you can start small and you can wiggle the pencil to make it bigger. I'm going to zoom this. All right. Here we go. So if you feel better, you could make little marks with your pencil where you want the eyes. So I'm going to dip into my black, which is getting a little thick sitting there. So I think I'm going to give myself a fresh dot of black. You need a little bit of a puddle to make a nice polka dot. So I gave myself another fresh dot right here. And I'm going to dip my pencil in it. And I'm going to make one eye. And I'm going to dip back in, and I'm going to make the other eye. the texture of the canvas does catch the pencil tip sometimes, so a really light touch is best. Okay, I have one still a little bit smaller than the other, so I'm going to come in and try to make that just a little bit bigger. Start really small, because in my experience, as you try to make corrections, things tend to get bigger, so start a little bit smaller. And I'm also going to take my round brush and get some black paint, and I'm just going to make a straight line under my nose on this bunny. Okay, so a little bit of water kind of ran down my ferrule, so I'm going to take that away. Be very careful with that. Go back up and start again. So that's how I want that. Okay, so one of the things that we did lose in the process that we're going to go put back in right now is the ears right here. I want to put more gray in to set the ears behind the head a little bit more. I'm not happy with that looking so flat. So I'm going to turn this upside down, and I'm going to put a little bit more gray. I tried to leave it, but in the process of my pouncing, I eliminated it mistakenly. So let's get some white. Let's make a gray. I'm using my round brush, and I'm just going to come in and just lightly tap in a little gray. Tap, tap, tap. Wipe my brush on my towel, grab some more white, and just come back in and kind of soften that a little bit. We'll come back in the front too and work on that. Okay, so I like having that more gray. Hopefully you can see how that helps to set this ear a little bit further back from the head, where this one still is looking a little bit flat. So I'm going to grab a little bit more gray and do the same thing on this side. I'm going to just kind of dry brush it into the ear a little bit. And then we're going to flip them back around. I'm going to add a little bit of white with that fluffy brush again. You don't want to lose the gray. Again, I like these best when they're dry, but I don't have another one of these handy, so I have to get some more. Okay, so let's come in the front and kind of fluff the top of his head. And then we'll just come back in with just a little bit of white, and we'll leave that gray showing, which is what I wanted to do in the first place. Alright. So adding in a little bit of gray at the top of those, bottom of the ears behind the head, helps bring the head forward. And again, you know, once the eyes are dry, you can come in too and add more white texture if you'd like to your bunny. I can't stress enough how much I like to let these bristles stick out outside of our base coat of our bunny and let that fluff hit the sky area. The fluffier that is, the fluffier our bunny looks. Alright, so take a look at your painting and decide if there's any other areas that you might want to touch up, anywhere where maybe your paint colors didn't quite quite meet any little unpainted corners. And taking a good look at this right now, I would like to call this one complete. So I'm going to give you a good swoop of it. Here's the ears, the face, the field in the background, and all your eggs and these beautiful grasses. All right. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Feel free to hit the like button and also subscribe to my channel if you would like to see more of my upcoming designs. Thank you for joining me today and have a wonderful day.